Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. It's April 21st, 2018, and it's been a strange winter, wouldn't you say? I think most people will agree with that. Very strange. But on the other hand, there seems to be some geoengineering going on. I was just watching Dane Wigington, Geoengineering Watch, one of his videos, and it's quite interesting. What the heck, WTH, is going on? I found this one website. It's quite fascinating. You can see the blue Arctic weather. And then if you look near Alaska, see if you can see where you think North Carolina is, where I am. And it looks like it borders on the orange and blue. And you go up to Alaska and you say, what the heck? It looks like there's some yellow and orange and blue in Alaska. But in the meantime, right down through the center of the United States is a blue streak, cold weather. So not too long ago, a few days ago, we woke up to 30-degree weather, and by 1 or 2 o'clock, it was 74. So if you subtract 30 from 74, that was a change of 42, 43, 44 degrees. That's like a shock, especially to the plants or wildlife, and to people. 40 degrees or more shift within 12 hours. Isn't that bizarre? So it's been a crazy winter, but you can go on this website, Ventusky, wind, rain, temperature, and it has all these controls. You can see the wind speed and the temperatures and all that stuff. And I pointed out, because it might be something you put in your computer under favorites. You click it and make it a favorite so you can go watch it anytime you want. It's just a good resource to pay attention to what's going on in the world, on the globe, when we're having these anomalous weather situations. Here's the link on the bottom. Now, so I was looking into this weather thing, climate change, global warming, potential ice age. And apparently back in the Coming Global Superstorm, CNN.com, CNN. And this article, like I said, was published on December 28th, 1999, about a book, A Climatological Nightmare, The Coming Global Superstorm, by, you won't believe whom, but Art Ball of Coast to Coast Radio. Used to be one of my favorite things to do late at night, especially if I was driving across country. At 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm listening to George Norrie or Art Bell on Coast to Coast, learning some interesting stuff. And Whitley Strieber. I made some books on Whitley Strieber's material. Series number 39. I hate that when I look behind me to try to find the series numbers, because usually I can't find them, and I got to stare and scan there and see which one was it. I'm up to series 196 on this video about this book, The Global Superstorm by Art Ball and Whitley. I think this book is dated 2000. This press release here by CNN says 1999, December 28th, so that's pretty close to 2000. Chapter 1, Present Danger. 1999 was the most violent year in the modern history of weather. 1999. This is 2018, and we had that temperature change in April of more than 40 degrees the other day. Seems like it's a late spring this year. So was 1998 and 1997. So that's more than 20 years according to this CNN document you can go look up. And talking about this forthcoming book I'm about to talk about right now. And I've talked a lot about the weather in my videos, and especially the chemtrailing, or the intentional dumping of chemicals in our sky, and according to some of my research, biologicals, dried blood, etc. Stuff that gets in us. And I've always been aware of the HAARP transmitters, strategically located in Alaska and Puerto Rico and Norway, in a big zipper pattern, a V pattern, all over the planet. Microwave, beaming huge beams or radiated bubbles of energy, bouncing around the planet or aiming it at cities. And according to Judy Wood, in her book as an engineer physicist, studying the collapse of the 911 towers, apparently she believes they were hit with directed energy weapons, HAARP transmitters, or maybe satellite lasers, like the California fires. So the bottom line is, it seems like there's some weird stuff going on, and it seems to me, from my opinion, it seems to be intentional weird stuff. Somebody's trying to bring about an apocalypse on planet Earth. And if you've been paying attention at all, there's been a few movies put out about that. That one about the whole northern half of the planet freezing. Another one about earthquakes everywhere. Another one about an asteroid coming towards Earth, etc., etc., etc. World War Z, and so much more. So what is going on? Why are so many people oblivious to the fact that something is going on? So please go look this document up. A Climatologist's Nightmare, The Coming Global Superstorm. And this was published, it was pretty simple for me to look up, in 1999. And again, I know a little bit about this research. I've been looking into it for quite a while. So I did some simple document researches just for this video, some current ones. I've got files and files of these things. Researchers reveal when global warming first appeared on the Science Daily. Getting over a slight cold. So they have all these charts to show you the weather patterns around the planet. And all these other links here. Basking sharks gather in large groups off the northeast U.S. coast. monovirus linked to 7 serious diseases. Scientists decipher the magma bodies under Yellowstone. Dinosaurs ended and originated with a bang. So lots of material to go out there and do some research. If you want to believe what's going on, maybe plan on moving from the coastline or major cities like I did. And here's one, February 11th, 2008. A 2,000-year global temperature record. Another document. And I kind of know this information. I've been researching this issue for quite a while because of the books that are published about it. But one of the charts I find that's interesting is this 2,000-year temperature change chart. So here we are today, and here's where it's been. Here's where it's been, down and up, down and up. And that's not surprising. I do wonder, though, and I have reason to wonder, are there some intentional forces that can control the temperature on planet Earth? Could the Earth's temperature be manipulated? And would it have been manipulated a long time ago? So it seems right now it's a little higher than it's been in the last few hundred years. I think this was a mini ice age, little warming period, and now they're telling us we're in our serious warming period. But if you look here, the Earth has been in a warming period for a long time, and here there was a lot of growth after the birth of Jesus. Around here, you could see all the warm weather 2,000 years ago, back here. So when you look at the chart, you can tell when they built castles and there was a lot of growth and population growth. And then the Middle Ages, and then when it's getting warm again. But back during this warming period, there was a huge growth spurt on the planet. They had castles and farming and animals. Look at this. Look, think back at history. Think back at the Middle Ages, the famine. And look at now. So what is the truth? The bottom line is, what is the truth? So if you want to go look at this chart on the internet, please do. It's fascinating. Save it as your favorite because you might need it. I was watching another video about this one guy who was sort of an alarmist, but he's saying, and it's something interesting to think about, but they're building this huge wall between Mexico and the USA. I mean, huge wall. And he says, and I did a little research, if I can find it here right away. But he says the wall is being built to keep Americans in the United States. I know I printed it out. But apparently there was even a document, maybe I'll find it during this video, that the FBI or CIA were even bragging in one of their magazines that they had stopped a huge percentage of people leaving the United States to go into Mexico and inspecting and frisking their cars. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Why would they be inspecting more people leaving the United States, and they had prevented numerous people from leaving? So maybe if there's going to be a global superstorm and they know about it and maybe they're going to cause it, maybe they do not want 300 million Americans trying to escape and go into Mexico and Central America and South America, etc. That would be a lot of people. And a lot of Americans have RVs and cars and Jeeps and guns and money. It would be one heck of a wave of people. And maybe they're preparing for it. I'm theorizing here. But why are they frisking and stopping more people? It appears the fences are to keep the people in. Just like the 10 sections of the United States divided into FEMA Area 1, FEMA Area 2, through 10, designated, I guess, concentration areas, and no water, no food. People will be herded into these camps. And you think to yourself, Rick, you're crazy. But I've been making videos and doing research for quite a while. This book, Lost Star, series number 56. Go watch my video. Some of these books I've got 2 2-hour videos, 3 2-hour videos. Some I only have 1 2-hour videos. Some of them I have 12 2-hour videos. But they have something in this book called the Kali Yuga. The shifting or the different ages. So in other words, we go into an age of enlightenment, and then we go down and descend into an age of darkness, and then reascend, where apparently, which what we're doing right now, back into towards the age of enlightenment. And apparently it's a 26,000 year cycle. And as you can probably guess, it's mapped out by the zodiac, the different signs, and the Mayan calendar, and so much more. And some of the prophecies tell us that there's supposed to be some incoming body, characteristics of the ages here. So go see my video if you're curious. Another book here, just to further enlighten myself and my viewers as to some of the material I've gone over, is The Open Conspiracy by H.G. Wells. I think he made wrote a book about time machines also. But this particular one here that I wrote, The Open Conspiracy. So he wrote a book about an open conspiracy. And he seems to be concerned about an overpopulated planet and a new world order, a new future. Like it says here in his book, page 69, this is series number 62 in my series. I'll just read one sentence. A new and happier world, a world community is awakening within the body of the old order to the possibility of its emergence. Our phrase, the open conspiracy, is merely a name for that awakening. Like the New World Order, the New Age, globalism. To begin with, the open conspiracy is necessarily a group of ideas. So So my point is I've been reading a lot of books, looking into this stuff. I'm in my 5th year of making videos. And of course, there's other books I've made videos on. The New World Order by a well-known author, Ralph Epperson, series number 94, involving the all-seeing eye, the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill. So the powers that be are behind all this propaganda, whether it's true or not, or incidental, an act of God or nature, or created by man or some other entities, I guess is for me to find out in my research, and people who are also curious or looking into this or concerned, from like my viewers, to find out what the heck is going on. Another interesting book I made a video on, The Black Sun, series 74. The Black Sun continues the intriguing revelation readers have come to expect from Peter Moon, that digs deeper than ever before into the mysterious synchronicities that have made his work so popular. The Black Sun is an adventure in the consciousness that reveals a vast array of new information, from the German flying saucer program to the SS mission into Tibet. We hear a lot about Tibet here. Remember that. We are led on a path that gives us the most insightful look ever into the Third Reich and the holy relics they sought in their ultimate quest, the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. So I've gone over the Ark of the Covenant. The box lined and covered with gold, and the 2 cherubim angels on top, that apparently housed this spiritual being who could zap out sparks or lightning and kill people and win wars and raise itself up and give the Hebrews, the ancient Jewish people, instructions on what to do, going into the Middle East, the land of Canaan, and to kill all of the Canaanites. That's what the being in the box told them to do, and told them that they were God's chosen people. I don't think God lives in a box. But Moses went up to the mountain, spoke to the burning bush or the bright light, and it told it how to build the box. And this box seemed to act a little crazy sometimes. So what's behind all this? And of course, I made a video on this book, Planet X Forecast, 2012 Survival Guide, Series 103. So for the last 12 or so years, since 2012, maybe before that, they've been telling us every year that Planet X is coming. The Destroyer, Nemesis, Herculumbus, with Nibiru, carrying some aliens called the Anunnaki. And apparently, their leader Anu and Enki and Enlil created mankind by mixing their DNA with animal DNA on the planet in some experiments so they could have slaves to mine gold, so they could fix the atmosphere on this binary star system carrying the planet Nibiru, that apparently every 3,600 years or 2,800 years or whenever comes closer to Earth and then goes back. An elliptical orbit like a comet. So the 2 suns come together carrying the planets. Maybe one comes in this way and the other one is spinning this way, perpendicular, or maybe they're parallel. I don't know at what angle, but that's the story. You can get the books, you can watch the videos, you probably already know about it. Is it true? Or is it a deception for some people wanting to take control of the planet yet again? Clouds of Secrecy, Leonard Cole, Series 18. They would go into subways, the U.S. Army and the government and other agencies, black operations, secret societies behind the scenes controlling our planet, and pump in bacteria and different kinds of testing of biological weapons. The Army's germ warfare test over populated areas. There's books about this. I made videos about this. This is not the only one I made on the only book. Series 18. Edgar Cayce, The Sleeping Prophet. 1940s, 1950s, 1930s. Predicted something about a pole shift or the changes that were taking place and reincarnation in people's past lives. Series number 112 in my series. I think I made 4 or 5 2-hour videos on Edgar Cayce material, and I'll continue to look at that. Climate Gate, series number 22. Project Bluebeam. Apparently they have these holographic projectors, and they could make you think you're seeing God coming through the sky. If you're Christian, you'll see Jesus. If you're Muslim, you might see Muhammad. So they have this big plan. So it's taught in these conspiracy theory books. The Marijuana Conspiracy, Climate Gate, and other true stories. Need to look at that again. Series 22. In the 1970s and 1968, they've been publishing books that they're worried about too many people on the planet. Series 27. Go watch my video. The Limits to Growth by the Club of Rome, another secret society group. Who would have thought that? In Rome, no less. HARP. Jerry Smith. Series 32 in my series. So they got these transmitters strategically located all over the planet. They're dumping chemicals, heavy metals into the sky. That's a combination. You put the radiated microwaves up there like your microwave oven. And if you put a fork in your microwave oven, you know what happens. You're not supposed to put metal in your microwave oven. So they're dumping metal in the sky. Aluminum, strontium, barium. You can go look this up and watch the videos, or look up in your own sky and see them dumping. And they got these transmitters so they can increase the temperature or decrease the temperature. They can heat up the ocean, and that, my viewers, is how you control the weather. That's how it works. Heat. Weather differences. Series 32. Underground. Series number 31. So who and why are they building all these underground facilities, and with tunnels from Washington, D.C. to Area 51 out west? Why are they preparing, according to lots of videos by even truck drivers on YouTube videos, and there's books and there's website, there's plenty of material out there. Bases and tunnels. What is the government trying to hide? Well, just consider all those books I just showed you. What is the government trying to hide? You don't have to be a rocket scientist or Sherlock Holmes to figure this out. If you've been reading books for a while or watching videos or just doing some simple research. And of course, George Orwell wrote 1984. If you haven't read this book, go read it. Get into the mind of these people. This one guy wouldn't cooperate, so they knew his biggest fear was rats. So they put a metal cage on his head with a little tube. You've seen cages for rats, so they have 2 cages in a tube they can go back and forth. And another cage over here with the rat, and they were threatening to open the cage and let the rat gnaw on his face, which totally made him go insane. Yes, and then he cooperated. George Orwell, 1984. It's unbelievable, but if you watch the TV programming, like Monday Night Tonight at 8 o'clock is the new Lucifer program, and Thursday night is Gotham, and so much more. The craziness. And last Thursday night's Gotham program was quite occultic. No doubt about it. They're becoming more blatant about it. Got interrupted by my phone ringing. We're addicted to those cell phones. I'm trying to plan how I can escape from having to monitor it. That's how I make money with my business. I answer the phone when customers call. Another book. I'm just looking at a few books before I start reading from the Coming Global Superstorm by Art Ball and Whitley. The Brave New World. Do we need more clues? The Brave New World. And of course, Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. There again, we have the eye on the back of the dollar bill with the upside down star, which is the sign for the devil. The 3 6s, the mark of the beast, the all-seeing eye, TV programming. You see it everywhere. Henry Mackay, Ph.D., Jewish author in Canada. The Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. Series number 2. And the first one in my series, Freemasonry and Satanism, was on the Freemasonic, it's right here, the Bible. The Freemasonic Bible with all the pictures, including the Ark of the Covenant in it and King Solomon's Temple, which apparently the elite of the Freemasons are obsessed with. The same thing that the Zionists in the Jewish utopias people are obsessed with. And that doesn't mean all Jewish people are in on it. A lot of them don't know what's going on, and they get quite offended if you talk about Jewish people, but they don't understand it from the perspective that a people, apparently some of them are into some kind of being. I just made a video on this book, Hostage to the Devil, talking about possession, and it mentions the devil. And again, Monday night tonight, 8 o'clock, is the Lucifer program. And it's quite revealing. Like Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie. They try to make fun of these issues to make people believe they don't really exist. But do they? You've seen all these books. Other losses. I just got this in the mail today because when I talk about things and I do my research, I go get the book and then I have to start reading it. But apparently, the Morgenthau plan after World War II, and I don't mean after, I mean even during the last days of the war when Germany surrendered. Can you just think about this? If there was a World War III and America surrendered, we didn't want to get the planet nuked. So the winner takes control. The United States took control of Germany. And they made a decision that all those men, women, and children, and not just military people, but the German people themselves needed to die. Apparently millions. They refused to send any food and water and kept them in cages in big fenced-in areas like the FEMA camps all around the USA. Go get the book. Don't believe me. The American and French armies caused about 1 million German prisoners of war to die starting on April 1945. A horrific story. And they did the same thing after the World War I, when they had the Russian Revolution. The Bolshevik Jews snuck in on espionage and abducted the Tsar and his family. And with the help of other allies guarding railroad stations. So we don't know how much the other allies were helping these Bolshevik Jews after World War I, when Germany lost again. And they proceeded to kill 25 to 100 million Christians and other good people, according to sources I have seen. So they did that after World War I, when they invaded Russia. It's almost like a secret revolution or war that nobody knows about. 100 million, 25 million people admitted in a popular Israeli newspaper. So at the end of World War II, the Morgenthau Plan, you can look this up. I got another book coming in the mail on this same topic. I just wanted to verify this stuff for myself. What are the powers that be capable of? And again, I say, if we do have this fake World War III and America surrenders, will they do what they do to the Germans after World War II and what they did to the Russians after they invaded that? And apparently they did the same thing in China and other places. So they always do a huge purge. All right, almost done with my book review. But I just wanted to point out the seriousness of this and the intent. Confessions of an Economic Hitman, series number 7 in my series, where the elites sent scientists and economic advisors and engineers to presidents and leaders of countries all over the world, convincing them to borrow millions, maybe billions, that their GNP, their gross national product, would soar and the people would be prosperous. Not. It never happened, and they knew it would never happen. Those countries signed contracts. They couldn't pay the mortgage loans that they took out. They went into bankruptcy, which apparently even in the United States in 1933, the United States went into bankruptcy after the elites took over the USA money supply on 1913, December 21, creating the Federal Reserve, which is not federal. So if they took it over in 1913 and the USA went bankrupt in 1933, so it took them 20 years to bankrupt the United States. And according to this book, Panama, Costa Rica, and other countries all over the world, the same situation. In the 1900s, 1940, 1950, 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990, and even today. Somebody's trying to take over the world. Is there any doubt? I had another book in the mail today. Themes and Variations, Aldous Huxley. And I was perusing through it, page 235, I was just looking at the titles. A Double Crisis. So I got to read this book and make a video. Unbelievable. Aldous Huxley, you'll see. It's an ex-library book. Published in the New City Free Library in New York City, 1950. I love getting these old books. But listen to this from 1950. The human race is passing through a time of crisis, and that crisis exists, so to speak, on 2 levels. Page 235 from this book published in 1950. An upper level of political and economic crisis. Intentional. In the 1800s, they did the same thing in Germany. They took over their money supply. They controlled the Britain's money supply, the French money supply, the Italy's money supply, the Vatican's money supply. They took over the world, these elites. These people who are members of secret mystery school societies, whereas some of the religious symbols, like if you're a Christian, of course, there's a cross or Jesus. Anyways, their symbols are the all-seeing eye and the obelisk, the phallic symbol, and other symbols. Apparently, their religion is Luciferic satanic, and the 3 sixes, and the horn sign. Even President Bush and other politicians use it. and a lot of the movie stars do this. They're all instructed to do that. There's a huge mind control, mind altering plan in execution taking place. It's unfolding. And people don't even know it. If they pay attention and watch videos like mine and take notes and say, okay, let me go see if I can see this stuff. Go on YouTube and look up the Simpsons cartoons depicting the 9/11 event, or the Illuminati card games, or the Illuminati itself, or the increase in Satanism, and the increases in possession, and all kinds of other stuff. You'll find the material. So apparently there's 2 levels: the upper level of political and economic crisis, and the lower level of demographic and ecological crisis. That which is discussed at international conferences and in the newspapers is the upper level crisis. The crisis whose immediate causes are the economic breakdown due to the war and the struggle for power between national groups possessing or about to possess the means of mass extermination. So much more in this. Themes and variations, Aldous Huxley. So with all that said, let me read something from this book. Global Superstorm, published in 1999. There's something going on today. They're putting these new cell phone towers right beside the road everywhere. And we know what microwave energies can do to food you put in the microwave oven or water. It resonates with the water molecules and heats up the food. So if they're microwaving you, and we humans are like 90% water, they can heat us up. All right, I'm going to do something backwards here. Like I do from time to time when I read a book. So I made it halfway through the book. Been reading this for the past couple days. And I came to some material that is just astounding, astonishing. So I thought I'd read from the middle of the book and go back towards the front as long as I can to complete this 2-hour video to make my point. So, but the first part, the chapter 9, the emergency develops, the United Kingdom, is a good place to start. So I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, I forget the name of it, about these super storms, all those gigantic gigantic tornadoes over the northern hemisphere, all merging together, freezing the cities. But listen to this. The emergency develops, the United Kingdom. So apparently there was a weather anomaly. This book was published in 1999. So back then there was an actual weather anomaly. And this is from Alex Rich at the Hadley Centre for the Climate Prediction and Research UK Meteorological Office, to Bob Martin, the National Severe Storms Laboratory, U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So I'm just going to read this letter from Alex to Bob for a plea for help. Bob, we have a situation developing here that I believe to be unprecedented. As you are aware, there is a very substantial frontal system moving rapidly southward that appears somehow linked to the trans-Arctic disturbance we all have been observing for the past week. The strength of this system should be apparent when I tell you that Yorkshire experienced its first tornado an hour ago. Yorkshire in England, and it was a C3, no less, class 3. There were deaths. We do not have numbers. We also have a Doppler of the storm, which is attached to this e-letter as a GIF document. You will see the classic formation, utterly familiar to you. So here in the United States, like in Kansas, we are utterly familiar with tornadoes. But in Britain, England, they're not. I have no doubt, but not so familiar to us here. It's like something out of a textbook come to evil life. There are villages scattered, people with no idea of what happened to them. The Minster, which is our great cathedral in the city of York, has had its windows blown out. This is not a place for sentiment, but I do recall how much you were taken by them when you and Marty came. God, that was a good time. Please do give my dear sister my best, and reassure her that interesting weather never strikes where I might be able to view it firsthand, so she is not to worry. My question is, what do you think this thing was doing in Yorkshire, and in midwinter, no less? So in midwinter, usually we get hurricanes in the United States in the summer and fall, and tornadoes usually don't happen in midwinter. We have no theoretical basis and are at a loss to issue a statement. Naturally, the Met, the meteorological organization, wants one immediately, so I need a quick response if you are at all able. Sometimes when you read other people's writings, the words can be backwards, not in the format that you would normally speak. If you are at all able. I have already considered the idea of calling it a freak system, but I think that we are in more trouble than that. Like I said, a week ago here in the mountains of North Carolina, 30 degrees, I had to bring in the plants into the house, the new seedlings for the garden, and within 12 hours it was 74 degrees, and we had to put the air conditioner on in the car when we went somewhere. Very strange. Anyways, in the book, please read on because I am going to tell you quite an extraordinary story. First, pull up the latest off the Met site, the meteorological site. You can see the complexity of the situation with that mass of extremely cold air dipping down from the Arctic. Look at the temperatures. How can we explain this? Those are Arctic extreme conditions. Along the roads in Scotland, people have been frozen to death in their cars. Anybody outside is liable to be killed in 10 minutes up there. Mountaineers are missing. Villages in the north of Scotland are not responding. The problem may be power, but I fear the worst. We don't have a death toll, but there is one. You can be sure, and it is doubtless growing. The lack of emergency equipment able to cope is a serious problem. We cannot get aircraft in due to the gales. I am not up on it, but I believe that some sort of military action is planned, an attempt to reach places that have become isolated and are without power. Isn't it obvious from the press? I know that. Don't be deceived. You are looking at an appalled silence. Really. We are getting ministerial queries by the minute from the government asking for this and that forecast. But we cannot give them forecast. What ungodly, monstrous force is driving that Arctic air? I showed you the pictures there. And I've been paying attention to this all winter this year. And something has been driving those Arctic weathers down into the middle of the USA and apparently causing crazy anomalies all over the world. While you watch the news or check the chart out, and you can see that it's actually warm in Alaska. So, and with the HAARP transmitters, I just showed you pictures of that, and then the chemtrailing, sky spraying, and even according to Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org, they are controlling the weather. So are they trying to bring this about to bring us a new world order? Do they have to destroy the planet? Like in the American Idol program in Europe, Eurovision, where in 2014 Conchita Wurst won the singing contest. Conchita means a female part. Wurst is a sausage, a male part. Face like Jesus, body of a woman in a silky dress, singing the song of the Phoenix Rising, which has the words in it, "You can't stop us." And if you know anything about the Phoenix Rising, apparently the phoenix is a bird that lives, mythological or real, lives to a very long time. And then when it rises up, it bursts into flames, crashes down, and a new phoenix is born. The Phoenix Rising. Could that be a metaphor what they have to do to get this new age, new world order, globalism? And if so, by whom? Does it involve demonic forces? Is it part of biblical prophecy? What's it have to do with what I'm reading here? What ungodly, monstrous force is driving that Arctic air? I think I know, and I will explain in a moment. If I am right, may God be with us. Page 98. London is still relatively normal, but the city is bracing for what is expected to be a drop to well below zero by midnight tonight. So I guess zero is pretty bad when we were down to the 30s last week. And in here in the mountains of North Carolina, we had a very unusual winter. I grew up in Maine, so I know what winter is. It doesn't scare me. But this winter in North Carolina, I felt like I was living in Maine. Wasn't quite as bad, but we just had continuous freezes and freezes and freezes and more snowstorms than usual. Meanwhile, they were dumping chemicals in the sky and erecting all those microwave towers everywhere. So who knows what they are doing? Back to the book. What I do not have is data on the Gulf Stream, and naturally, we are all wondering if you might not have such. And remember, what year was it when the Gulf of Mexico had all that oil seeping up from the floor of the Gulf? And apparently it was drifting out into the Gulf Stream, and then the BP and other organizations were dumping all those chemicals, saying they were going to disperse the oil, but they wouldn't tell us what kind of chemicals they were dumping in the Gulf Stream. And then later on, there was reports that the Gulf Stream actually stopped. And that would cause havoc weather in the north if that warm water did not go north. How far does this go? What is behind this? Who is behind this? What I do not have is data on the Gulf Stream, and naturally we are all wondering if you might not have such, or access to it perhaps through your Navy, even if it is classified. And it could be if they use it for sonar calibration. Please do get it and send it our way. The Royal Navy is pretty has pretty extensive data, of course, but it is mostly from the North Sea and the shelves. We need rate of flow for the mid-Atlantic, water temperatures, salinity. So when I was reading this, I thought about the HARP transmitters and how microwaves can heat up the water. And I said to myself, man, they could heat up aim those microwaves off of these transmitters, and they're all located strategically all over the world, on any body of water, which would attract the storm and increase the energy of the storm. They could do it any time they want. It appears they are doing it. Even the California fires were quite mysterious, with the aluminum wheels on cars melting and other stuff all burning, but green things or things that would not be affected by microwaves right next to something else that was incinerated did not seem to burn, like even the clothes on a human body, but the human body would be boiled or burned away. Somebody's using some kind of crazy technological energy weapons, so it seems. According to the videos I watch on YouTube. They are not my imagination. You can go watch them. So the British are asking for the water flow and the temperature of the Gulf Stream, because the Gulf Stream comes from the south and right past Britain, which keeps it warm in the winter. Imagine if it didn't show up. The Arctic air just came down. He says, I am out of my depth when it comes to matters oceanic. But if you have any models of what we might be able to plug into, well, please get them in touch about ASAP. It is my personal belief, and I would never ever speak this out loud around these parts, old friend, that this is the birth of a terrific catastrophe that we are witnessing. I think that something has happened to the North Atlantic current. I think that the entire shift of climate is underway. The notorious climate flip. If this is true, then anything you can tell us is urgently needed. Remember, this is Art Ball of Coast to Coast, writing a book with Whitley Strieber, who wrote those books on gray aliens. I'll show you his 2 books before this is over. I was surprised to see Art Bell wrote a book. Maybe he wrote some other material. I'll have to check. Alright, so the notorious climate flip. They're expecting something. Could that be why they're building the wall between the USA and Mexico? Are they planning on keeping the USA people in? And could it all be controlled? Is it all part of bringing about a global planetary order like the Hunger Games movie or Divergent or one of the many other movies, Mad Max? If you think crazy people don't run the planet, just go research a little bit about World War I and World War II. And that other book I just showed, that's just too unbelievable of a story. I need to investigate further. Other losses, killing all those Germans after World War I when they surrendered. Weren't they supposed to be prisoners of war? And prior to World War II, some elite Jews wrote that book, Germany Must Perish, calling for the elimination of every German with German DNA, men, women, and child from the planet, from Germany. Germany must cease to exist. So apparently after World War II, they tried to follow through with that. And again, if we have World War III and the United States surrenders immediately to avoid a nuclear war, remember, we're surrendered, now we're all prisoners, and in previous situations, the people were purged. So he's thinking about a notorious climate flip. If this is true, then anything you can tell us is urgently needed. Because, as you know, the European situation would be very concerning, especially with regard to us. I do not believe, under these conditions, that there would likely be a crop this year, not in this country or nor elsewhere in Northern Europe, food shortages. So these crazy weather, like here in the mountains of North Carolina, can they bring a freeze next week? Would that mean that the little peaches on my peach tree and the apples, and they're about the size of a pea right now, that all those fruit would die? Could they destroy our crops? And it looks like they have been with droughts in California and elsewhere. Just theorizing, thinking. Persistent cold into the spring, consequent fuel shortages, and economic dislocation. So they have economic dislocation. I've been talking about them. They're intentionally doing that, according to John Perkins in this book, Series 7. You can see why I started making videos. I've been reading these books for about 10 years, and I said, oh my, what good is it if I know all this stuff and I can't share it? People need to know. They need to go buy these books. Share it with their friends. All right, back to this letter. Given this, I see a need for some sort of emergency conference, perhaps under the aegis of the WMO, World Monetary Order, I don't know, but something that will be able to address the urgency of the situation. Look at the map. How extraordinary. It's as if the Arctic is suddenly expanding, as if it is sliding down the planet into Europe. Well, that's a conclusion we cannot handle. Please review there, and please do respond at your earliest convenience. Best ever, Alex. So that's chapter 9. All right, so I'm going to read from chapter 8, the war hypothesis. So what they're talking about in this book is the theory and the evidence, apparently, that previous highly technological civilizations have existed prior to ours on planet Earth, but they were completely destroyed and disappeared, but the monuments are left behind. So the war hypothesis. I'm going to try to be brief, reading from the actual material, and just read my highlighted points and tell the story the best I can, so I can try to get more of the material from this book in this video. Whether there was an earlier civilization or not is not central to our argument that we are in danger of a massive shift in climate. But we are exploring the issue at length for two reasons. First, if this civilization in the past existed, it died during a period of similar climate change. That's what they're theorizing. And then I'm moving down towards my next highlighted paragraph. Was the natural catastrophe that befell it so extreme that they were all destroyed? So something huge might have happened. And my next highlighted paragraph. What if a horrible war took place in the context of violent changes in climate, leaving most of the civilization shattered by the storm and the rest blown to pieces? And apparently there is evidence of nuclear warring in the deserts like the Sahara or the Middle East, where tons of the sand was turned to glass. And remember, a lot of these secret mystery organizations into a mystery religion worship some ancient gods, and apparently it was the ancient gods who had a war, destroying even the humans on the planet, causing a lot of upheaval. Is that about to take place yet again? And what, if so, should we wake up? If we had an all-out nuclear war right now, 3/5 of our economic infrastructure would be destroyed. We might lose as much as 90% of our population. Remember, this book was by Art Ball of Coast to Coast and Whitley Strieber in 1999. So, would people today hunger to use the powers which in memory would come to seem greater than they actually were? So, do people who have discovered some evidence working for the government or super corporations, whatever, have they discovered things that is tempting them, some powers? And would people, after the civilization was destroyed in the past, would jets might become spacecraft, the internet a magical wellspring of knowledge, and the actions of scientists and the rituals of priests, the objects of technology, no longer understood, would become objects of worship. So a lot of these ancient religions, including that of the Vedics of India, apparently worship a lot of this ancient knowledge, even with Eric Van Doniken, The Gold of the Gods. I made videos on his books with the artifacts in Ecuador, even little gold, little looking like ships or helicopters. What do we know? What should we know? These people thought that the machines of the West were gods. So even in World War II, when a lot of the high technology aircraft were landing on islands in the Pacific, where natives have never seen anything like that, they thought that the USA troops were gods, wanted to worship them, and that the commonplace actions of people operating them were a priestly ritual. And so the natives tried to attract the flying gods by creating airfields of their own and populating them with bamboo airplanes and refrigerators, then moving them around in ritual dances meant to emulate the airmen. So it's interesting the point of view that Art Ball and Whitley Strieber is trying to talk about natives who would have seen these high technologies of the past. Another highlighted section of my book, we have searched for a physical record of an ancient technological advanced civilization and found some strange ruins that suggest the evidence of powerful engineering abilities that are now lost. But we have not been able to find any trace of a society that could have created the Sphinx 10 to 12,000 years ago, moved the gigantic stone at Baalbek, or constructed Nan Madol out of 458,000 tons of basalt. So these ancient monuments are all over the world, and they can't figure out who built them. What's it have to do with this? The coming global superstorm. In the New World Order, New Age globalism, World War III, seemingly looming in our future, some kind of worldwide catastrophe. The structures are there, but not a trace of writing, not a single tool, not even an apparent reason that something as arcane as Nan Madol would have been built. So perhaps there is some record of this civilization elsewhere, an oral record along the lines of the stories that were preserved by the U.S. Air Force operations in New Guinea by the cargo cultists. So the natives were worshiping the U.S. Air Force, flying in with all their equipment. It says here, as it happens, such a record may exist. Some of the oldest stories in the world come from the Vedic literature in ancient India and tell of a civilization that possessed scientific skills and technological knowledge, but did not extend to all the peoples of the world. So apparently there were some people back then in ancient India who were advanced technologically, but not all the peoples of the world were not advanced technology, so there were a separate class of people, apparently here. There was a war, and it was destroyed so completely that nothing remained. So according to the ancient literature of India, there was a war, and it destroyed everything so completely that nothing remained. What's that old saying? History repeats itself. The central works of Vedic literature are the Brahmavita Purana, the Mahabharata, and the Ramayana. So I guess I'll have to get those books and read them to further my knowledge. I'm sure I have some information on this and probably already read it. The Bhagavata Purana is about cosmology, there you go, the science of the stars. And the other two are historical accounts. The texts are thought to incorporate much older material, some of it said to have been recorded as long ago as 3000 BC, so that's like 5,000 plus years ago, and quite possibly to come from earlier accounts of the oral tradition. Throughout this literature, there are accounts of what would appear to be a highly technological machines. A careful reading of the text demonstrates not only that most of the descriptions could fit real technology, but also that the most powerful technologies are described in the oldest literature. And I remind myself and the people watching my videos that it wasn't too long ago we didn't have radio, TV, automobiles, never mind airplanes and rockets and computers. Not too many generations back. One generation back, some of those older people can remember having to go to an outhouse instead of having a bathroom. Even in a house I lived in when I was very young in Maine, we did not have an indoor bathroom. So this world has really taken a turn, and you got to ask yourself how and why. And when I started my research, a lot of these scientists were psychic when they were children and on into their adulthood or into these mystery school religions. So were they getting information from another realm, another dimension, beyond the veil, the other side, or were there some kind of beings involved trying to advance planet Earth for some reason into the technological age we are in, which apparently has been planned, and now they plan on creating beast computer systems to control everything and microchip the people, basically making them zombies, controlled. It's all out there in the news these days, the media, the TV programming, the school systems, the transgenderism, pansexuality, destruction of Christianity. Something's up. All right, back to the book. The Vinama aircraft are the best known of these, Ancient India. And they range from devices that could convey souls through transcendental realms to man-made wooden craft that used wings. So the ancient India history had some kind of devices that could convey souls through transcendental realms to man-made wooden craft that use wings. I've gone over numerous books on remote viewing. Some of the descriptions seem extremely fanciful, but the more our own technology advances, the more sense they make. So apparently, the more we advance technologically, the more the historic technologies make sense. Some of the ancient India documents, but even interestingly enough, even the tablets, the Sumerian tablets that apparently Zacharias Stitchens is supposed to have interpreted, and so many ancient scrolls and manuscripts and information from the secret societies. Who knows what they are into? And I'll bet if we knew, it would make a lot of sense. And it seems to me there is a correlation between the secret mystery schools, the obelisk, the all-seeing eye, and sorcery, witchcraft, and the Kabbalah, and the spiritualism, demons, demonology. It makes believing in God much more probable that if this all was true, then of course a God would intervene trying to help the human race. And apparently that's why we had the Great Flood. The human DNA, or the creatures that were being created by the historic Atlanteans and other peoples, as we see in mythology, half horse, half man, half other kind of animals and people, and some really strange monsters. I suppose if planet Earth were populated by all of these beasts, which of us wouldn't want to pull the plug and try to erase it? Can you imagine living on a planet full of monsters? Although it seems to be coming back around. They even gave children those Pokemon chips 30 or 40 years ago. And now a lot of the young people look like the Pokemon characters. An example of this occurs in the 10th canto of the Bhagavad Gita Purana. I know I'm pronouncing this wrong. Where the story of the Vinama obtained from the god Shiva by an earthly king, Salva, is recorded. And remember, they got the statue of the Indian god Shiva, the goddess of destruction, in front of CERN. And they had a machine in this book that I just read about that could transport people's souls. And then you read about CERN and all this other stuff I've been going over. Yeah, it starts to become a little believable. And then knowing that the earth was intentionally erased with the Great Flood, and remnants of humans were saved everywhere to try to get rid of that perverted, polluted, created monsters, giants, and beings. And they're trying to do it again. So it seems. So this device had remarkable properties. It could appear as many objects, page 89. It could become invisible. Its exact location could not be determined. It never stopped moving, not for a moment. And I know they have a lot of advanced technological craft these days. A lot of it we, the people, are completely unaware of. Apparently we have a secret space fleet. So much more. Pine Gap in Australia, Area 51 in the United States, and so much more. I've gone over the books on those topics, and I will continue to do so. A modern military aircraft using electronic countermeasures can produce the same effects. And I've shown in this book review here there's a lot of information about this that's trying to be hushed up. But please go look up Project Bluebeam, MK Ultra, Project Montauk, Project Paperclip, and so many more. Manhattan Project. The idea for developing the nuclear bomb. Ironically, those guys met at the Bohemian Grove, where they throw a baby into a burning fire called the cremation of care. The story just gets bizarre and bizarre. All right, moving on here. Salva also possessed arrows that homed in on sounds. So they had, back in ancient India, the ancient history, these craft called a salva had ancient arrows that could home in on sounds. There are missile guidance systems that work by honing in on the distinctive sounds of the jet turbines. They have the advantage of being impossible to defeat using normal countermeasures. So some of the ancient technologies seem to be being redeveloped today. Again, I wonder, with all these archaeological digs in the Middle East and the world, all this searching for something, and then all these advancements in technologies and the disbursement of the 5G microwave network, FEMA camps, HARP transmitters dumping chemicals in the sky. What the heck is going on? Transportation is also described in the account of King Salva's adventures, the ancient Indian history material. Such a thing has until recently been assumed to be impossible. I'm not reading all of this book. Please go see if you can find it. The Coming Global Superstorm, 1999. Art Ball, Whitley Strieber. But in a report in Nature magazine in 1997, a team of scientists announced that they could cause quantum duplications of a photon or particle of light, and there is a serious speculation that quantum movement of larger objects may be possible. And with the Jacob's Ladder and even other material, H.G. Wells writing about the time tunnel, it seems time travel may be a reality. Well, opening up portals, allowing beings to come through them, seems to be something that's verifiable, even with CERN and the activities we've seen there. I've gone over those topics. I will continue to do that also. The projection of illusions that look like real objects, also a feature of the account. Like I said, that's Project Bluebeam. So is ancient history being redeveloped? Did somebody find some documents and symbols and have massive computers that figured out what that stuff means? Could they be planning for something? So these could use holographic projections. Defense specialists have been experimenting for some years with creating elaborate illusions of planes against clouds and even vehicles and troops moving across the land. Should these accounts be dismissed as works of the imagination? Certainly that's what we would normally do, but what seems rational? But it is actually a more serious question than it seems, because of the issue of whether technological, uninformed people could have ever imagined such things as all. So apparently there were two groups of people in the history of planet Earth. People more like the Neanderthals or native peoples, and then people with advanced technologies. Well, if this was true, it would seem we would find such descriptions throughout ancient literature: strange weapons, flying craft, imaginative technology ought to abound. But a survey of the literature of other cultures reveals the opposite. With very few exceptions, ancient literature does not describe machines, it describes powers or beings of power. So the interpretation of all of this is beings or gods, which may be just people with advanced, or other kinds of beings, aliens, with advanced technologies. And there are many examples of giants all over the planet, and lots of other evidence. With very few exceptions, ancient literature does not describe machines, it describes powers or beings of power. A famous exception is the account of the fiery wheel that occurs in the Bible in the book of Ezekiel. While it's obvious not the only account of a divine machine, the fact that it is the only one in the Bible attests to the rarity of this subject in ancient literature. So could people who control planet Earth and our societies be intentionally trying to keep this knowledge from we the people? Of course, this isn't too surprising given the fact that ancient people were rarely exposed to machines. The authors of the Bible would never have seen anything fly except birds. They would not have been aware that jet or rocket power can cause something to rise off the ground. So if you were a primitive person and you saw these things, what would you think? This is why the description of the device of Ezekiel may well be the same sort of that of the Venema craft of the Vedis from India, a confused account of the real object of some kind. So what's it got to do with this coming superstorm and all the other activities of and inventions for all these weapons they're building, and these, why do they have so many wars? What kind of people do run our planet? Is World War III, as prophesied by the leading Freemason Albert Pike, a reality? Will they use some highly advanced technologies to change the weather, to bring the Arctic into the populated areas? The people will flee. There'll be the big wall between the USA and Mexico. The FEMA camps will be ready. Could some bizarre event take place on planet Earth yet again? Look at history. These people have done it and done it and done it. Look at 1913 when the elites took over the USA money supply. After not having control for almost 50 years, assassinating 2 presidents, poisoning 2 other ones to gain control of the money supply. And then 20 years later, they bankrupt the country, and we have not been under the Constitution or the Bill of Rights since then. Is that possible? There's plenty of information on the internet, YouTube's, websites, documents, involving university professors and senators. Another tradition in which flying machines appear is the fairy cult in Northern Europe, but these are never associated with any kind of motive force, but fly by magic. So if people didn't know about the technologies we have today, like the TV, back then they called it the magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all? You suppose that was some kind of an iPad? By contrast, the whole array of different machines as described in the Vedis, in fact, if a primitive people were exposed to Western aircraft, television, electric light, powerful explosive weapons, they might well write descriptions of them similar to what is found in the Vedis and understandably attribute them to gods who looked human. Alright, almost finished with this chapter, 2 pages here. And I'll finish this video. There's much more in this book. This is only chapter 8 and 9. If they are not the works of the imagination, then the Vedas record a relationship with a technological culture that might have had more than one warring society within it. So whoever these societies were prior to the Great Flood, maybe there was some of these societies on earth after the Great Flood, like the Shambhala peoples or society that's supposed to be in the Himalayan mountains. Have they been here all along, and are they operating behind the scenes? Or are these stories about the inner earth? Or are there beings off planet? Are we on a planet, or are we on flat earth? Lots of questions. Confusing answers. What is the truth? That's why I make these videos. So we can have the conversation, and another conversation, and another conversation, till we get it. How else can we do it? The relationship the Vedas described between the ancient Indian peoples and this society, or a group of societies, was not very different from what many third world countries experienced during the Cold War, when the Soviet Union and the United States competed for the allegiance by giving them technological booty and constructing magnificent facilities for them in return for strategic alliances. And also convincing countries to build power plants or dam up rivers, and bankrupting them to take over their countries, even assassinating presidents, testing biological weapons on we people, even in the United States. All these books I've gone over. Go watch my videos and go get the books, better yet. The New World Order, Ralph Epperson. He wrote quite a few books. What is going on? Vedic lords would worship various demigods and in return get extraordinary craft and weapons from them. I've said this all along. Even the Germans were into some kind of mystery religion. I showed you the book here. Got so many books here, I can't find the right one. The Black Sun, where apparently Hitler and those people were getting all these advanced technologies. One device called the Bell, anti-gravity devices, submarine technologies, aircraft, the V rockets, and so much more. And here I'm reading this about this being described in ancient India. Getting the information from these other beings, this other society. So in this case, the lords, the Indian lords from India, would worship various demigods and in return get extraordinary craft and weapons from them. They would get help in their wars and would become allied with one side or another. King Salva sought the help of Shiva to destroy a city in Krishnas. He was given access to weapons that could affect the weather. Did you hear what I said? Page 92. In ancient Indian historic mythology, documents, their god, these beings they were worshiping, gave them access to weapons that could affect the weather, and such weapons are not infrequently mentioned in the Vedic text. So in the Vedic text, the ancient documents, these weapons are mentioned quite frequently, and it looks like these weapons are being reinvented today. Missiles, rockets, possibly even jet power, and bombs are described in the Vedic literature. The power plants of Venema craft emit vapors and create roaring noises. But the one here where they can control the weather in ancient Indian Vedic text, that ought to alarm anybody. Explosions are described in some of the older text. But where did this information come from? How was it imagined? There is no real answer to that question. All of the political alliances and all of the violence that it implied in the Vedic literature suggest that there were more than one advanced society, possibly as many as 5 or 6 advanced societies back then, and apparently they had a insane nuclear crazy war where apparently, I'm ad-libbing here, paraphrasing, they bombed the smithereens out of planet Earth and destroyed everything. And that at least some of them were so advanced that they could leave the Earth altogether. According to Art Ball and Whitley, and I'm not trying to say here that I believe this is what happened. I'm saying that I research everything. I'm going to continue researching, trying to find out. I do believe we are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. I do not believe the human race started yesterday. I do believe that the society before the Great Flood existed. There's too much documentation. The Great Flood was prophesied, the Book of Enoch, the Book of the Dead, and so much more. There was a reason for the Great Flood. So what was this society? I believe the weather can possibly change. It can go up or down. I think that the Kali Yuga, the zodiac, the Mayan calendar, the descriptions of a 26,000 year cycle, the tilt of the earth taking it through the precession, through the constellations, that's all real. But what does it mean to we the people, and why are they building FEMA camps, and why are they planning for this new utopia where the elites, again, will be the society dominating the people on planet Earth, and apparently are planning on depopulating the planet. Got more books on that topic. The material's there. I've been making videos going on 5 years. So apparently there were 5 or 6 of these warring societies, and then of course you had your primitive peoples and villages and natives. They were the victims when these people warred with each other. Who wants to believe this stuff? Not me. But go look at them building the cell phone towers beside the road. Go look up the 5G network and see that they're weaponizing this technology. See that they're microwaving children today. Look at all the technological advances that are being laid out before us. Dumping chemicals in the sky. And the threats, bombing Syria, threats of Russia retaliating. It's all there to see. Look into World War I, World War II, 9/11, Zionism, the State of Israel, the prophesized history. It's all connected. And it says here, these societies, that they were not at peace with one another. In any case, whoever they were, even if they existed, they have certainly departed this world. So that's what Art Bell and Whitley write in this book. And now they're telling us that these beings are probably back, whether they call them reptilian, gray aliens, Anunnaki, masters, archons, watchers, and so many other names. They have certainly departed this world, leaving behind them only a few magnificent structures that silently defy our own silence with the riddle of their construction. And I made lots of videos on lots of books about this stuff. Eric Van Doniken on the Gold of the Gods, and so many more. Remote viewing. I made book reviews on many of the UFO books, alien books. I'm going to do that again and again. Sometimes the most telling facts are small things, and this is true in this case. One could go on and on examining the evidence, trying to get the final answer. But there is one small fact that suggests that it all may be quite true. That there was once magnificent power among men, and that it was all lost in the conflict. And there are, I'll admit, those monuments to me appear to be real, like the Sphinx or the big stones at Baalbek in Lebanon, the size of 2 school buses long. They can't duplicate that. Mine them 30 miles away. They can't even mine one and get it out of the mine today. They had advanced anti-gravity technologies. And apparently the powers that be have them now. And apparently they're obsessed with there's too many people on the planet, and they think they would have a much better planet and a more utopian society if they got rid of about 90% of we the people. That's who these people are. And I'm sure there'll be factions among them that disagree, and that those super societies or elitist people will battle each other, while the rest of us just look up at the sky with our jaws dropped, shock in our eyes, not believing what is happening while it's happening. Could that happen? When archaeologists dig down into the very bottom of some of the most ancient cities in the world, pressing through layer after layer of construction at Ur or Neverith and other locations in the Middle East. Here we go with the Middle East. This is what it's all about. This is what 9/11 was all about. This is what World War I was all about. French Revolution, Civil War in the United States. Somebody's fulfilling a plan. So they dig down in the earth in the Middle East. And what is found is a material that is also found at ground zero of atomic explosion, fused silica, sand that has been heated to such extreme temperatures that it has turned to glass. Are there shadows hidden in that ancient material? Memories, perhaps, of a great and terrible age that is gone? If so, the old legends conceal the meaning and definition of our own epoch, a time during which we have climbed painfully back to a certain level. So apparently we're approaching that same technological age they did back then when they destroyed themselves, only to find that we are hanging by a thread over the abyss of an equally uncertain future. But what about the people who had these magnificent powers? What sort of scientific knowledge might they have possessed? If we listen to the music of the old myths, and if we let it sing to us, haunt us, capture our hearts, maybe then we will touch the secrets of that science. And this book is called The Coming Global Superstorm. And apparently they're trying to prove that human beings, it says in here, cutting down trees, creating more methane, are responsible possibly for this climate change that goes into some extreme ice age. But then they're talking about all this stuff. So I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together. I'm going to continue reading this book. I read half of it, and I read from chapter 8 or 9. The first few chapters are about the evidence of present danger, our mysterious past, trouble in the south, mankind the unknown, a lost world, the Tokyo Express, and the last disaster. It talks about previous seemingly huge climate changes that wiped out all the people and animals on the surface of the earth. And apparently they're associating some of that possibly with intentional climate change. Weapons they had that could do it, as you just heard me read here from the ancient Vedic Indian text. So thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.